Welcome to Scorched Earth and the general reading for the sign of Leo, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of September 2023. I hope you're well and you had a nice birthday and all that sort of thing. I'm using the Edmond Dulac Tarot for you today. Now, before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is the first link in the description box. I've just dropped a card and it's the Sun. The second link in the description box is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on Circle. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost, and you can hang out with a truly extraordinary group of people, and they are wonderful. I love them with a fire of 1,000 suns. So if that's something that sounds like it's of interest to you, please do feel free to avail yourself of that link. Right, Leo, sorry to leave you till last, not intentional, as you well know. If you've watched me for any length of time now, it is dictated by the order that the coins come out in, so not me. But I appreciate you waiting for me, so thank you for that. Let's have a look and see what's going on with you. Can I have 3 cards for Leo, please? So we have the Two of Swords in your recent past. Current energy for Leo, please. Oh goodness, we have the King of Wands and the Strength card, no less, coming out. I can't even see what I'm looking at. Let me show you. There we go. So King of Wands and Strength, both Leo cards, double Leo. And what's coming towards Leo for September, please? Thank you. We have the Justice card and we have the Queen of Cups, I believe. Well, now we have the Lovers card at the bottom of the deck. So this looks altogether far more positive than I was afraid might be the case, actually, Leo, to be honest. As some of you know, I am also a Leo. That explains my sleepy arrogance, apparently. Someone wrote in the comments recently, which I just thought was hysterical, and I shared that with my son, who went, I get accused of the same. He's also a Leo, obviously. So, yeah, sorry, it's a family trait, it would seem. Right, we're going to go with the, this. What is this? This is the Tarot of the Abyss, to clarify. This looks really good, Leo. And I wonder if a lot of why it's really good has been this Venus retrograde in our sign. Obviously, depending on what your ascendant is, will dictate which of the houses it actually ran through for you. For me, as a Capricorn ascendant, it actually went through my 8th house, so it was a pretty deep and profound experience. I still don't think I'm quite free of the free of the woods yet, as it were. It's been quite crunchy, but there have been some really spectacularly deep insights and into what is valuable. And I think ultimately that's what a Venus retrograde is about. How we respond to that thing, you know, how we value things in our lives, all that sort of stuff. But let me get some clarifiers out first and then we'll talk about this, because this really does feel quite positive. Tell me about that Two of Swords, which has been pretty crunchy all round. That Two of Swords, thank you. We've had the Seven of Swords there. And we've got the Knight of Cups in reverse. Interesting. Tell me about the King of Wands and the Strength card, please. Fucking hell. That card really wanted to come out. So we've got the Hierophant there. The Three of Pentacles. And the Two of Pentacles. Interesting. Tell me about this Justice card and the Queen of Cups. We've got the Nine of Wands. We've got the Death card. And let's get one more because we've got double cards out. And we've got the Three of Swords there. So Two of Swords is at the bottom of the deck as well. So we've got that appearing twice. And just to explain this, but here is the recent past. And by recent past, I mean it literally could be when you woke up this morning. But it probably goes back about 6 weeks. I wouldn't say much more than that. and covers everything in between. So the Two of Swords is a state of indecision, but I often call this card willful blindness. And that sounds rather harsh, and it's not intended to be harsh, because the willful aspect of it actually comes from the subconscious rather than the conscious mind. It's the things that we don't know that we don't know. It's the things that we don't see and don't know that we don't see them, which is particularly on point when it comes to things of a subconscious nature. So the Two of Swords represents our inability to make a decision to go one way or another, because quite frankly we don't have all of the information. Our subconscious has all of the information, and it's made a decision on our behalf. That is to say, on behalf of your conscious mind. And a little pop fact for you, your subconscious mind works on average 4 times faster than your conscious mind. And in some instances, it can work up to 20 times faster, depending on what's going on. So please don't think for a second that you're in charge of your shit, because you're absolutely not. It's your subconscious all the way. And that can make it very difficult, particularly when you're kind of trying to do any kind of work on yourself at all, because really to make the biggest changes, you have to make contact with your subconscious. And if you don't know what you don't know, and you can't see what you don't know you can't see, I'm trying to think of some sort of metaphor I could use to explain that. I can't bring one to mind off the top of my head, but I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. That it's got a bit in common with the Eight of Swords in some ways. Except the Eight of Swords, I feel, when it shows up in a reading, is a very it's a very clear indication that you're thinking about something in the wrong way. And I like it when it comes up in readings, because obviously it also has those meanings of feeling stuck and feeling trapped and all those sorts of things, right? When that comes up in a reading where I am feeling stuck or trapped or something like that, I'm like, brilliant, okay, there's another way around this, I'm just not seeing it, so I'm going to sit with it for a while. I feel like it's a little less defined when the Two of Swords comes around, because just like this woman here, who's just kind of submerged herself, and she's got a face out of the water, it's like there's a vast endless sea of possibilities, and who knows what the fuck might be going on in your subconscious that is making you act in one way or another. Now, as it happens, I feel like this actually relates to people around you. I think that this Seven of Swords and Knight of Cups in reverse is actually an energy that's been biting at your ankles a little bit, Leo. We have the Seven of Swords, which is... I most often interpret this as self-deceit, interestingly enough. But I actually feel like it's sort of sitting outside of you a little bit. It's not the ways that you've deceived yourself exactly, although there would be an aspect of that here in the Two of Swords, because you don't know what you don't know, because your subconscious has concealed it from you, and it's already made the decision about how you're going to react and where you're going to go and what you're going to do before your mind gets anywhere near it, your conscious mind at least. But it feels more outwardly antagonistic, this Seven of Swords and Knight of Cups combo. When the Knight of Cups shows up, it's a really beautiful card. It represents Pisces. It's a beautiful card of an open-hearted consciousness, right? Somebody who literally leads from the heart in something. And in order to do that, you have to be open, loving, accepting, empathetic, compassionate. When it shows up in the reverse, that's something really quite unpleasant, and it feels manipulative. It's kind of like the dark side of Pisces, right? Is that capacity to prefer to be, when it's when that energy is in its shadow form, to be manipulative and covert instead of direct and open. And then you combine it with the Seven of Swords, and it feels, the two cards together feel like they're scheming somewhat. Now, when I often talk about the Two of Swords, because we're using the Waite Smith more often than not, or some derivative thereof, we have the woman who is sat on a stone bench, it seems, with, you know, the double swords crossed over her heart, and she's got a blindfold on, and the sea is at her back and the moon is at her back, and this willful blindness caused by the subconscious is often our refusal to turn around and have a look at what our emotions say about a situation, what our intuition says about a situation. Now, we don't have that in this card here. What we have is someone who is completely, well, almost completely submerged, certainly subsumed by the water. And I don't know if we're catching her kind of drowning there or floating. Either way, she's certainly not gallivanting around and having any fun. Like, she seems in a state of overwhelm. And it's overwhelmed by circumstances that seem to have been brought to you by somebody who has been less than honest, less than direct. And I feel like most of you should know what this situation refers to. But then there's something really quite covert about it, which means that you may not know exactly who it refers to, but that there is some sort of energy of that around you somewhere, you know. I mean, fuck, it could be coming from social media or something like that, you know. Tell me about Seven of Swords and the Knight of Cups. We've got the Seven of Cups, we've got more emotional confusion, perhaps a little bit of illusion. And we've got the Four of Swords. Now, I think you've been doing an absolutely sterling job, Leo, of trying to keep yourself afloat when it seems like all of the energies around you have been trying to bury you. It feels like things have been very, very trying indeed. And perhaps a former version of yourself might have absolutely retreated into yourself, isolated yourself away from other people, or come from a place of feeling abject terror of being rejected in some way, which is an interesting kind of side thing for this. But I feel like you're just not giving in to your more base shadow side in confronting what seems to be either trying to manipulate you or undermine you in a covert, sneaky way. I mean, I guess that's what I'm trying to say here. And it's been really hard. I mean, who knows how long that woman's been in the water there. It feels like it's probably been your experience of Venus retrograde. Like I said, depending on what your ascendant is, it'll have affected a different house. But this energy of the Knight of Cups is so very closed. It's not coming from a loving place. It's not coming from a compassionate place or an empathetic place at all. And the Seven of Swords does have this kind of devious feel about it. And this is not you, Leo. This is the point. It's not you at all. You're trying to keep your head above water. You're trying to keep all your stuff together. You've been putting a lot of mental energy into that, I think. And even though you don't really not emotionally understand, you don't understand the emotions of someone who would come at you like that, rather than just being direct and open and honest and really being everything that you are, Leo. You've tried to keep your shit together, and I think you've done it really well. Because this energy has been crunchy. And Four of Swords is a concentration on healing, which means that you've gone looking for what it is that you don't know about yourself. Some of you might have found yourself kind of wandering around shadowy places during this time, and those shadowy places are in here, right? And you've had to approach that. You've approached that like this, with an open-hearted consciousness, right? I'm going to forgive whatever it is that's crunching around inside of me and unpleasant. And I'm going to concentrate on healing it. It's been a bit of a Sisyphean task for you. Yeah, I think the legend of Sisyphus is all very well. He's the chap who rolled a boulder up to the top of the hill only for it to get knocked down to the bottom. Like every day, he had to do the same thing. But my favourite go-to is pushing water uphill with a fork, because that's often what my life feels like, to be honest. But when we come into your current energy, we've got the King of Wands and we've got the Strength card. And I think it would be difficult to say that you've done anything other than come out of this shining, Leo, in so much as you've found a level that you vibe with, right? So Leos are preoccupied with being strong. A bit like Taurus in that respect, actually. Like, we're born knowing that we're strong, and then we have to deal with a lot of situations that frankly are really, really difficult, and they test you, and you grow and you become more resilient as a result. But sometimes we can get very fixated on external expressions of that strength. So we get a little bit like too independent for our own good and all those sorts of things, Find it very, very difficult to ask for help. People come to us for help. That's what we're here for, and all that sort of thing. But the real strength in the Strength card is not the big cat or whatever depiction of some large wild beast that it is. It's actually in this woman here and her ability to be able to tame the wild within her. And if we were to describe this as a test, and I tend to shy away from that because I don't really like that as an interpretation, then what we've got here is that you have passed with flying colours, because not only are you still doing, and it's very important for a Leo to be doing, you're still doing you in the most authentic way that you possibly can, open, honest, all that sort of thing. You've kind of tapped into reserves of strength that are a little less overt than you might have thought prior to now would be what strength looked like. It's something altogether quieter, more peaceful, more resilient, more well, you've tamed your own beast, Leo. That's what you've done. Now, it's not to say that it's not going to break its leash at some point in the future, that would be a somewhat metaphorical representation of there being a whole new level of you to access. You've got to the point where you can deal with that, and that's where you're going to go deep diving. But certainly, in terms of what Venus retrograde was doing in your sign, and whatever this energy is around you, and like I said, it might not be from one specific person. It may have been from fucking social media keyboard warriors, or something out there. It's not been quite as... It feels like this is kind of pushed to the surface. It's like you can see it now. And you might not have known what to do about it or what to think about it, but you sat with it. And that was the important thing. Because sometimes fire signs get obsessed with doing things for doing things' sake. Right? I've got to prove my worth and my value to the entire world, so I have to be busy and I have to be doing things all the time. And it's like, well, actually sometimes you don't. Like, I really do feel like Venus retrograde might have, for a lot of you, felt like it was a crash course in looking after yourself, in so much as it's a reminder of everything that you've known, and here's a situation whereby you get to put it into practice. And I actually like what we've got underneath here. So we've got the wise one, which is actually the Hierophant. It's Taurus energy. And we've got the Three of Pentacles and we've got the Two of Pentacles. Now, what I like about this is actually the fact that it's counting down. We go from the Three of Pentacles to the Two of Pentacles, and the obvious next step would be the Ace of Pentacles. Now, it's not showing up yet because it feels like there's a little bit more crunch to go through before you get to that. But it's certainly being suggested that it's going to be showing up fairly soon. And by fairly soon, right, I'm going to say maybe it's next month, right? There's an opportunity to invest, but first you had to learn to access this strength that you have done. Become more yourself than you ever have been before. But start building something really quite solid in a way that you didn't expect. Now, I think that Venus retrograde has a reputation for kind of dragging apart relationships and things like that. But I think that's only really the case where there were cracks in the foundations to start with. I mean, it can actually do a really, really good job of really deepening a bond that you have with other people, whether this is a significant other or family members or friends or whatever. Like, it can really, it can make that dense, like really, really something that will last the test of time. And the fact that it's here with the Three of Pentacles is almost an indication that the biggest thing for you, Leo, was to learn to work together with other people. Like I said, like, Leos tend to do things by themselves, and particularly when there's any kind of difficulty involved, you're not ones to ask for help. You're certainly not ones to show your wounds to people or your flaws to people and go, here you go, cast some judgment over that. No, why would you do it? Like, you keep yourself to yourself when it comes to those sorts of things. But you do seem to have grown. And now, because you're willing to work together, you feel almost more able than you were before to manage your own shit. It's almost like what you want is to be strong and to be independent, but you also wanted to achieve. But because of your reluctance to bring other people in or ask for help or even just, be vulnerable, you were blocking your ability to be able to be actually all of those things. Tell me about this Hierophant, this wise one. Where's the wise one here? Page of Pentacles. There are really deep foundations that have been built in this last period of time for you. Like, look at this. We have got the Death card at the bottom of the deck. We've also got the Page of Wands and we've got the Nine of Cups. Now, when I was talking about Venus retrograde and value, what we consider to be important, what it is that we want to dedicate ourselves to, that's incredibly important. And the Page of Wands says, like, you're actually in a better state now to be able to go after what it is that you want. And we've got the Nine of Cups. Like, I think a lot of Leos have been under a tremendous amount of tension. And the thing is, Leo, you haven't gone to bits. You have not flipped your biscuits at all. There might have been moments where you felt like you were close to it. But you really are managing your emotions here. Like, the Death card is a representation of an act of transformation. And when we speak about acts of transformation, like, often is this, well, it's a bit like with spiritual awakenings, right? People think it's all puppies and rainbows and unicorns and such like. And actually it's usually pretty excoriating. And there's a point, there's a period that follows it where you need to assimilate what you now see, what you now know, into your reality, and it can be really fucking jarring, particularly if you are walking that path and you don't have people around you who are similarly inclined. It can make you feel a little bit like you're going nuts. Certainly makes it quite difficult for you to manage your emotions in light of it. But I think what's happened here for you is that you've been under what could be considered an intolerable amount of pressure, and yet you have tolerated it. And more than that, you have persevered and you have allowed yourself to transform. You've actually encouraged yourself to transform. And I don't think you're even aware of how much you've grown. Like this Hierophant card here is sometimes for me a card of heritage and legacy. It talks about the past, but it also has implications for the future. But it's also a card of really solid commitment. Now this doesn't have to be, to a person. I think it's probably to yourself actually, Leo, because it's coming out underneath this King of Wands and Strength combination. It's like for the first time ever you feel properly solid. And there's a peace about you. And all of the things that you've tried to be in your life, you actually just are naturally, and you're not even really thinking about it that much. But I think as an exercise, it would be really useful for you to cast your mind back over the last 2 months and just think objectively about what has occurred and how a former version of you might have responded to that. Because it certainly isn't the way that you've been responding here. I mean, even just this attack here, I feel like this 10 years ago would have stung beyond anything else. Now it's just like, it's almost like rolling off your back, because it feels as if you understand that it's a projection. And rather than becoming distracted, being pulled into the weeds of somebody else's issues, what you've done is float around and bob about and allow yourself to process the fact that you don't know what you don't know, you don't see what you don't see, that your subconscious has been doing something, but consciously you have chosen the path of peace. It's funny, I really like the astrologer Cam White. I think he's awesome. He's a fellow Leo. I'm not biased, but he's a fellow Leo. And he's been talking a lot recently about this concept of, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And I wonder if there's something here of that that's permeating through. Because this energy here feels like 10 years ago you would have done everything in your power. Possibly to have confronted this energy and showed it why it was wrong. Like it would almost be like your ego needed you to do that because you needed them to wrong about the opinion that they had of you. Now you're just kind of bobbing around on the surface of it and you're like, well, it is what it is. They are who they are. And am I going to waste any time being sucked into this delusion, or am I just going to work my way through whatever's been coming up from my subconscious, or just taking it one step at a time, plodding along? I mean, if you want to get really quite fluffed up, I might think about what the last 6 years have contained for you. Because the stuff that you've been through in the last 6 years, it's amazing that you're still standing. And not only are you still standing, but you're peaceful and you're managing your emotions and you're actually committing to self. possibly committing to other people too. But it's almost like committing's almost like the wrong word. It's more like you're here, Leo, and you're more here than you ever have been before, and you're allowing other people to be here, and you're allowing other people to be a part of things, and you're not actually afraid to be seen, warts and all. And whilst you might think that that diminishes you in the eyes of other people, maybe, you know, if you think about it hard enough, you're like, oh, God, I wish I hadn't had a little wobble about that thing in front of that person. You feel to me like you've grown in the eyes of other people because of your willingness to do that. And so you are now more likely the thing that you've been trying to be for the longest time, but you're just doing it naturally, you know. Now, when we move into September and what it holds for you, we have the Justice card and we have the Queen of Cups, and this is really quite interesting. You know, the Justice card can speak to all sorts of things. I mean, we've got legal situations are possible. It's a Libra card, so all things Libra are pretty much encapsulated within this, but I tend to read this as consequences. And interestingly enough, it feels like, you know, accepting the consequences of one's actions, although that makes it sound tremendously negative, and I really don't think that it is. Not with that Lovers card at the bottom of the deck here, because this is free will. This is... I actually see autonomy and sovereignty in this card really strongly. Because it's a card of making a choice. It's a card of exercising your free will. It's about stepping up and making decisions about things, and you've been doing that. You know, deciding not to react to provocation has been a huge part of that. But it's conscious co-creation. Like, you feel to me like you're getting into a slipstream where the lessons of the universe aren't quite as... well, they certainly are not perceived by you to be as brutal as they have been in the past, and perhaps that's because you're paying attention now in a way that you weren't before. Like, where you might have got dragged into the weeds of this at a previous point, now you know you're favouring this higher path. You're certainly favouring a path that has you looking within rather than looking without. Tell me about this Justice card here. There's a reason why you were left till last, Leo, by the universe, I have to say, not by me. I was waiting for that. I fucking have known that that was coming. I've known since about 3 weeks ago that that was coming. I've just been waiting for it to show up. I promise you I've not subconsciously been avoiding doing this reading at all. I just knew that it was going to be coming out. So, we have the Justice card, we have the Tower card, we have the Wheel of Fortune, we have, in some ways we do have the consequences of your actions, and I don't think this is where you have been bad or mad or awful or any of these things. I think it is, you know, it has that neutrality about it. If you haven't seen my friend's video on karma and what it actually means and how it actually plays out, I might actually link it at the end of the reading, because it is really quite an extraordinary piece of work. It's the best thing I've seen ever on explaining it, right? So there is a neutrality to karma, and whether you perceive it to be a bad thing or a good thing is very much under your conscious control. Now, you can choose to use it as a learning experience, or you can allow it to whip the rug out from underneath you and have you spiralling into default patterns of behaviour. Now, obviously, it goes without saying that it's far more useful to you to treat it as a learning, as a teaching moment, right? Something where you can learn something really important and allow yourself to be taken in a different direction to where you thought you might be going. Because if you're in this energy of the Lovers card, right, the conscious co-creation, there is a there is a fluidity about your movement here, and by extension an adaptability and whatnot, then I don't think that there needs to be any fear about where the universe is taking you. You quite simply withstood too much to flinch away now from what's happening here in September. Because things are changing, be under no illusion whatsoever that things are changing. We have the Nine of Wands. It's a Sagittarius card, but it's one that speaks about resilience, you know. It can talk about boundaries and that sort of thing, but I don't feel like that interpretation is particularly relevant in this reading here. We've got somebody who has been at war already and is in a pretty fucked up state. But it's not time to rest yet. The hard work is not yet over. There is more to do, and he's got to lean on that one because he's going to have to do what there is to do. We have the Death card. Fuck me. I mean, Death, Justice, the Wheel of Fortune, and the Tower in one fucking month. Leo, I think this is going to be a little bit of a ride for you because, you know, where we have already seen a degree of change for you, there is more coming. There is more transformation, more change, more required from you. As always, there is more required from you. It just seems to be the Leo bag, right? And we have the Three of Swords. Now, tell me about this Three of Swords, please. We've got the Seven of Pentacles and we've got the Six of Wands. All right, quite frankly, life, Leo, is what you fucking make it. Like, I'm just going to say that right up here. Because this seems to me like a situation that feels very fucking awful. In the best tradition of the Tower, it's like, holy fuck. There has been a grenade thrown into my living room and now everything is fucked. All my sofas are blown up and everything. All my sofas, like I have hundreds of them, right? You can choose where your attention goes. You can choose what you focus on, just as you could do it here. And so we've had this pattern that you've broken out of, and we now have this much more evolved and mature way that you're choosing to deal with any given situation that shows up in front of you. What am I learning about me? How can I grow? How can I make the best of this situation? I think it's probably likely that we've got things coming up from the past, right? Not only do we have, 15 billion planets in fucking retrograde. It's not, it's like 6 or something. I think Venus maybe counts as the 7th because she's still in post-retrograde shadow. So, you know, there's still that retrograde energy is still bubbling around. And during retrogrades, it's not uncommon for things from the past to resurface in order that they be dealt with. Now, the reason that I'm talking in that vein is because we have the Justice card, which, as I said, consequences of one's actions, but we also have the 6, maybe 7 planets in retrograde at the same time, right? So going over things that have already been done seems to be the order of the day. And with that Queen of Cups there, it's talking about total acceptance of whatever it is that comes up. This is not a month for you to fight, Leo. I genuinely believe that you do not have to fight. And in fact, I would go as far as to say the worst thing that you could do at this point is fight the Tower. Because when the Tower energy comes along, it is trying to take something away that doesn't need to be there anymore. It's about taking you and guiding you off in a different direction. I mean, sometimes I liken the Tower to a full 90-degree turn. There's a path that you're on and you're going that way, and that's what's happening. And the universe goes, actually, you're not. I'm picking you up and I'm sending you off that way. Bit like kids, you know, when they're first starting to walk and they're just fucking toddling around everywhere, and you see them just like running full tivvy towards the kitchen fucking cupboards or something. You just grab them, turn them so they can run that way instead. That's kind of what the Tower energy is doing here. The Wheel of Fortune gives it a very fated feel, but it also talks about what it is that you need to learn. You know, if the last couple of months have been a bit crunchy for you, it's been a training ground for what comes next, because you are required to be resilient, you are required to transform. And this Three of Swords here, which I've just clarified, I was trying to put the cards where you can see them, let's put them there, like that, is how are you going to deal with that? What are you going to do with that energy? Are you going to sit around and feel sorry for yourself and go, well, this isn't what I wanted, this isn't how things are going? Well, possibly. I was actually explaining to my partner that I have a whole process that I go through when things go wrong, and that is to whine, bitch, complain, moan to myself inside my own head, get pissed off, then get defeated, sit down on the floor, grumble to myself for a little bit, and then be disgusted about the fact that I just haven't got on with it, and then I get up and I get on with it. Like, that's literally how I do life. And I genuinely prefer to do that without an audience. So you know, not that you can tell I'm whining and bitching and moaning, I sort of do it all in my head. But yeah, very Leo of me to prefer to not do it with an audience. But this is more of the same, it's just bigger. And what I really like about this is that what we talked about a few months ago, when the Five of Wands and the Six of Wands just kept coming out together almost for everyone. It's like one is contingent on the other. Five of Wands is Saturn in Leo. Six of Wands is Jupiter in Leo. And in order to win, there has to have been something that you're competing in or you're battling for. Otherwise, it's not a victory, right? But equally, if you don't have the prospect of winning, you're not likely to struggle through what Saturn wants you to deal with. Right? It becomes just struggle for struggle's sake. So the Six of Wands needs to be there as a thing. There needs to be struggle for you to be able to prevail. And we don't have the Five of Wands on the table, but we do have the Seven of Pentacles. I don't feel like you need to fight. I think that the only thing that may possibly you may need to fight is your own desire to fight. Rather, the Seven of Pentacles is, yeah, things are a little bit crap, and that's okay, because this is fashioning me, this is taking me off in a different direction, something's happening, this is all good. You know, at some point, the Six of Wands will show up, because I am doing what the universe wants me to do. I am working on myself in the way that the universe wants me to work on myself. I'm not going to get lost in the weeds here, just like I wasn't going to get lost in the weeds here. So whether the heart is broken or not depends very much on the outlook with which you allow this energy to bring its big brush strokes through your life this month. And I say that because we have this Sagittarian card of Temperance on the bottom of the deck. Now, Temperance is about equilibrium and balance and the necessity therefore. It also talks about emotional balance. It talks about filling your own cup before other people. You know, it talks about taking care of yourself. It can be divine timing and divine orchestration and all that sort of stuff, and there's fingerprints of that all over this. But the other thing that it speaks to is alchemy. The alchemical process of taking something and transforming it from one state into another, right? This death is transformation, but this is the active transformation of something else. And it speaks to healing. Like, this is an opportunity for immense healing for you, provided you accept it in its entirety, provided that you understand that you have been in training for this, or whatever this is. And whether or not the Three of Swords is as it is here or whether it's something else depends on how you deal with what comes up. Are you going to allow this to be a healing moment? Are you going to allow this to change your direction? Or are you going to get lost in the weeds? Because be under no illusions, Leo, like September will be a spectacular month for you, and not necessarily, it's not necessarily going to feel all Six of Wands. Certainly not in the short term. But there's an energy of, that I recognise here. I've seen it so many fucking times in my life, where something happens and it feels like the worst fucking thing that could have ever happened. And yet in relatively short order, and it might be a few weeks to be honest, so it's not going to feel like it's that short while you're experiencing it, but nevertheless, in relatively short order, this suddenly becomes something that couldn't be any better if you tried. There's almost like a Jesus take the wheel kind of energy about this, Leo. Like, the only thing that is required from you is that you endure, you withstand, you accept, and you continue to work on yourself. Anything else is going to see you in the swamp. It's like it flips from something really awful to something brilliant, like I said, in relatively short order. You've done all of this work to get yourself into the slipstream of conscious co-creation with the universe, and the universe is paying attention and saying, right, okay, well, you know, let's crack the fingers and get Leo really ready for this. They seem to have indicated that they're ready. And it's coming. And it's the Tower, so frankly, you're not going to see it coming. You're not going to see what this is. You probably won't guess what it is. Because with these major cards in play, and I'm talking death, I'm talking justice, the Wheel of Fortune, the Tower. This is taking you off in an altogether different direction. These are major players, these cards. I mean, the only one that's really missing that I would look for something truly karmic and fated and this knee getting away from this one, it would be the Judgment card, which interestingly is not here. It may show up in the extended. But these big energies will not be turned away from, and like I said, the very worst thing that you could do in this situation is try and fight it, Leo. Because it is going to take you somewhere fucking epic. But it's as much a test of you as to whether you're going to allow it to happen as all of the other things that have been not tests, but, you know. I don't even know what the fuck I'm going to call this reading. Maybe crisis and redemption. But it's so much more than that. You know, this is a full redirection by the universe, and it's throwing a lot of energy into it for you. And I think maybe that might be something that could be useful for you to hold on to when you feel yourself in more of this energy than this, which is that it's happening for you, it's not happening to you. And the most spiritually evolved thing that you can do is just allow the universe to come through, scour out, and then take stock at the end of September and see where you are. Because it might well be that the Six of Wands has already made itself known to you then. Where this flips from being something fucking dreadful to actually this is really good. What the fuck? This is working out better than we planned. You know? No wonder you were at the end. That. I've been able to feel that for weeks. I knew that was coming. Right. I'm off to the extended now. If this reading has resonated with you and you would like to go a little bit deeper, like I said at the beginning, you've got the first link in the description box, which is to the Vimeo, or you can come over and join me on Circle and watch for your moon or your ascendant or anything else that you please, and hang out with people and have awesome conversations. If none of that is your bag, no shade, you're perfectly entitled not to come and watch the extended, but there's a couple of takeaways from here that I think are really important. That is, you have been in training. Okay? You're not kind of coming out of the Venus retrograde and being all like, oh, holy fuck, that was a bit crunchy, now I'm good, now I can move on. No, this has been training and now we're doing the real thing. And the other thing is, I'm not talking about being passive. I think you need to be actively resilient, and you need to be actively managing your emotions, and you need to be actively doing all of the things that you're doing. But accept whatever's coming through. Because the payoff will be big, I think. Alright, I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.